Great. Welcome, everyone. I'm Mandy Mahoney, President of the Southeast Energy Efficiency Alliance. Thank you for joining us for the path forward in today's plenary session, Energy, Equity, and Expansion. We're very grateful for Georgia Power's support and sponsorship of our series this week. Thank you, Jeff Smith. Energy is the unseen driving force that unifies our day-to-day life. It is the heat that warms us up at night, the electric fleet delivering essential goods to our doorstep, the Wi-Fi, computers, and lamps creating our makeshift schools and offices in the corners of our living room. We recognize the importance of energy most in its absence. In the South, 1 out of 3 people struggles to pay their monthly bill. That's 15.4 million homes, about 35% of all households. They've experienced energy insecurity or difficulty in deciding what bill to pay that month. Utilities, prescription, doctors, grocery, it's a hard choice. The energy affordability crisis in our region is deeply rooted in historic racial segregation practices like redlining and the suppression of Black votes. This infrastructure still shapes the Southeast's energy sector and limits access to affordable power, housing, and transportation. Informal housing segregation began in the mid-19th century, but by the 1910s, white policymakers created the first racial zoning laws. In the 1930s, federal officials developed a series of maps that defined predominantly Black and immigrant communities in hundreds of cities as hazardous. These maps outlined entire neighborhoods in red and prevented residents in those areas access to federally backed mortgages for 4 decades. In the post-Reconstruction South, Black votes were suppressed through tactics like poll taxes and literacy tests until the Voting Rights Act in 1965. For more than a century, Black Americans had little to no representation in the legislature and regulatory bodies that governed their communities. Today, neighborhoods that were redlined experience more intense heat, are transit and food deserts, have less infrastructure investment, more pollution, and higher energy burdens. These compounding issues put residents at higher risk of chronic illness and disease like COVID-19. These systems have intentionally clouded our view and allowed us to overlook the inequity in our communities, cities, and states. Our hearts tighten remembering the sting of confusion when we first learned that while we are taught to believe all people are the same in God's eyes, Black and white lives rarely play out in equal measure. To build a more prosperous, healthier, and equitable South, we must first do the painful work of tearing down the scaffolding that has held racist policy and practice in place. At SEIA, we are working to expand our knowledge of the past, understand the current barriers to equity and energy, and aspire towards a future that provides greater economic growth, a cleaner environment, and equitable solutions for all. This work requires both individual and collective investment. In 2018, SEIA critically examined the makeup of our board of directors and decided that if we were committed to diversity and equity in the energy sector, we first needed to adopt a formal diversity, inclusion, and integration policy, expand our own practices and our infrastructure. Changes to increase the diversity of our board paired with internal training and exercises in understanding bias have led to richer and more productive discussions about our work with each other and with our stakeholders. In our keynote video yesterday, we heard from Will and Jenny Harris at White Oak Pastures. They know a few things about taking big leaps of faith. In 1995, they began the journey to transition their multi-generational farm in South Georgia to a vertically integrated zero waste model. Today, they humanely raise 10 species of livestock, support 167 jobs in rural community of South Georgia, and are studying how to use grazing animals under solar arrays to further offset carbon emissions and increase biodiversity. Will's analogy of the 3-legged stool demonstrates a careful trinity of creativity, prudence, and stewardship required for innovation to take flight. In this week's session so far, With the help of advocates, policymakers, health experts, and leaders in energy, we've learned more about how to define the problem of energy equity so we can begin to form solutions. In today's breakout session, SIA staff and industry experts will lead you through robust discussions on the future of energy efficiency and how we can work together to achieve equitable solutions and expand opportunities for all through energy efficient policy, electric transportation, the built environment, and the workforce. The Energy Efficiency Policy Team breakout, led by Cyrus Bedwar, will discuss integrating equity into the life cycle of energy efficiency program development. What do program designers need to develop equitable programs? And where are the opportunities in the cycle to decrease inequity? Ann Blair, Director of Energy Efficient Transportation, will delve into how inequity surfaces in the access and affordability of electric transportation, how to build equitable transportation programs, and the outsized effect of emissions on communities of color. In their breakout room, our built environment team of Maggie Kelly and Will Bryan will explore what equity means in the housing sector and how energy efficiency both promotes and limits equity in residential buildings. Our Director of Membership and Diversity Integration, Pamela Phan, will lead a discussion on how representation of minority groups in the energy sector brings more innovation and equity to the sector and enriches the local economy. So we'll have a robust, rich discussion, and we're now going to move you into your pre-selected breakout rooms. If you need any assistance, please drop your questions in the chat, or you can return to this main room at any time. Thank you.
Hey folks, this is Sarah. I'm just assigning people now, so hold on and we'll get you moved into your breakout room shortly. Thank you for your patience.